Hi, good afternoon, everyone. We are excited to talk with each of you today. We have a really exciting session called The Best Teams Are Born Here. And today we're going to talk about hiring and career advice from HR leaders who power the people behind this wonderful industry. So to get started today, I want to take a moment to introduce our amazing panelists who've joined us today. And our goal is to really hear from these top HR pros on important cannabis employer policies and regulations, talk about what it's like crossing over to cannabis, and then also just key assets that they seek when hiring outside the industry. So the first thing I want to do is introduce Catherine with Kiva. Catherine, do you want to take a moment to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks so much, Lauren. Hi, everyone. It looks like we have some people still joining us here, so that's great. We'll have a full session today. My name is Catherine, and I am fortunate enough to be the HR director for Kiva Brands. If you're not familiar with Kiva, we make and manufacture delicious edibles in the state of California, and we also have a thriving sales and distribution business. So two really big pieces of the business. We are in additional states throughout the U.S. We're in 5 partner states as well. So me, myself, I have 15 years background in human resources, starting out as a high volume recruiter, moving to kind of HR generalist responsibilities, and then working my way into a management role. This is my first job in the cannabis industry. Previous to this, I worked in CPG, distribution, retail, hospitality, and now I've landed in cannabis, and I love it. Kiva is primarily based in California. Our employees, we have about 350 employees in Northern and Southern California, and we are hiring. I know we'll get to that a little bit later, so I'm excited to get to know all of you a little bit more.
Thank you, Catherine. Appreciate that. Dara, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. Hi, everyone. So I'm Dara. I'm currently the VP of People at LeafLink. And for those of you who may be unfamiliar with LeafLink, so we are an e-commerce marketplace. So what we do is we ensure that brands, distributors, retailers are able to streamline just the overall ordering process. We help with simplifying communication, everything from helping them think through scaling through their operations. And so we really are working to just define the way the relationship between the cannabis brands and retailers actually work. So that's a little bit about the company. For me, I joined LeafLink at the beginning of this year. We are currently just at about 117 employees, quickly growing. When I joined, we were less than 100. And so I'm mainly responsible for, partnering with our leaders to ensure that we're creating and scaling the people operations department. So basically looking at what is the culture that we want to create at LeafLink? How do we want to make sure that we're building sustainable programs that will continue to just engage and motivate our employees in the right way? So that's a little bit about me. And we are also hiring.
Thank you, Dara. Wonderful. And Andy.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Lauren, for this opportunity. I am the HR manager for Buddy Boy Brands, and we're a small retail storefront. We have 7 locations, and I have 106 employees. The owner of the company has a lot of vested interest in different companies here in Colorado. And so I do some consulting work for those entities where they have an extraction facility, a farm, another storefront. So we've got a really diverse portfolio of companies under his ownership. And so I am, like Catherine, new to cannabis. I've worked all big retail. I came most recently from Walgreens. As a regional HR manager for them based out of Colorado. And I don't have any startup experience on my resume, and I really wanted that opportunity. So this came across my desk, and I'm not looking back.
Awesome. Thanks, Andy.
Yeah.
And I should introduce myself. My name is Lauren. I'm the Director of People Ops for Work. Work is the leading provider of payroll and HR software for the cannabis industry. So our focus is paying the people in cannabis. We are also hiring. So we are located in Denver and also have a physical office in Scottsdale. And then we hire remote teams all over the US. So I think we're in 15 states right now. So Yeah, wonderful. Well, excited to have these panelists. We have such great talent on this panel today, so I'm really excited to kick this off. So the first question that I would like to start with for the panelists is, what are the biggest differences between the cannabis industry and traditional sectors when it comes to cultivating talent and teams? Whoever wants to kick us off.
Yeah. So one of the first things that struck me when I first joined the team, and before I grew my own HR team, so I was really overseeing talent acquisition, was the sheer volume of people that want to get into the cannabis industry. You know, I'm coming from industries where, you know, there are people that want to get into them as well. But more often you have to go out, you have to post, you have to be proactive, you have to go to job fairs, you really have to look for people to apply. Not so at Kiva, and not so, I'm guessing, for the majority of the cannabis industry. Flooded, our job applications are flooded, and you know, LinkedIn, constantly requests coming in. So that's great for us. It can probably seem a little bit daunting to a job seeker because there's a lot of competition. And I think that, you know, our recruiters, one of their biggest challenges is kind of sifting through all the people that want to get into the industry, recognizing the passion and the fact that they would love to work here, but also making sure that their skills will translate and that they truly understand the difficulties of working in this environment, which is unlike any other environment I've worked in before. The people issues are the same, right? We work in human resources. People are people across industries, but the regulations and compliance and the fact that you don't always know the right way to do something and you have to kind of make your best guess. That's really hard for some people. So trying to determine that when you're interviewing someone and trying to make sure that you're getting someone who can really adapt to this environment, I think is a challenge. It's a fun challenge, but it's definitely a challenge.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. For me, when I think on it, I found that so much seems to ring true to any of the other sectors that I have been a part of, from the standpoint of cultivating teams, creating a solid culture. There are certain key tenets that I think apply in, you know, many fast-growing environments that I think should continue to apply here in the cannabis space. So, you know, some of the things that we look at is, you know, what kind of employee experience is it that I'm working to create when I'm putting together, you know, sort of our overall people strategy? Are we making sure that it's an experience that's going to be motivating and challenging and rewarding for people? You know, we're looking at, you know, it's a new industry. There's lots to accomplish, lots to get done. How are we making sure that our people are getting good, regular, constructive feedback along the way in terms of their progress towards business goals? So what are the frameworks that I'm setting up to be able to put that in place? And, you know, just making sure that folks have a very clear understanding of what the company mission and vision is and can see, you know, what is it that they're doing every day? How does that actually connect to that in a real way? You know, how are we looking at compensating our employees equitably? You know, even on the external side, we are growing, as with so many startups. You know, how are we making sure that we have a strong employment brand and, you know, one that will continue to attract top talent along the way? And how are we leveraging social media or other channels to be able to kind of evangelize our overall LeafLink brand? So, you know, I think a lot of the topics that you touched on, Catherine, are quite true in terms of some of those intricate differences from a skill sets and what you're looking for. But then when you peel it back and look at what are the elements that really go into building and creating and scaling a culture, you know, for me, it feels very much the same when you're looking at any sort of startup industry. These are the things that have to remain true no matter what. So that's just my perspective.
Wonderful perspective, Dara.
Nice. I think for Buddy Boy Brands, what's been really cool is I was the first HR person to help kind of steer the company. Everything was subcontracted out prior to this. And everyone knows that when you subcontract out, you lose some of that control. So like Dara said, I'm able to kind of put that people spin on things. And like Catherine said, the problem isn't finding the candidates, it's finding quality candidates because the work is hard. And really the pandemic has allowed us to kind of see some different talent. And what I'm trying to do with my team is allow us to do what I'm calling experiments where, you know, people are new to the industry and that we're providing that training, that they come to us with leadership or a college degree all kinds of different backgrounds where they're able to kind of enhance the business. They also don't, I'm looking kind of down the road, we might grow another couple of stores. So I need to find those people, or the owner might purchase another location. And so I'm always kind of living in today, finding those candidates, but then looking down the road. Because if you would have told me we would have had a pandemic and we would now be essential workers, I would have said you were crazy. But we are. And actually, my staff is up 5 people from when the pandemic started. So I feel so blessed that we haven't had to do a RIF, and we're taking care of our people. And the things that we could do during that pandemic to say thank you were incredible. Giving out raises in April, gift cards, feeding our team for 6 weeks because we wanted them to have food, implementing a recognition for your anniversary. Like, who's doing this, Most of my friends in HR, they're scaling things back. And so what a unique opportunity to really kind of guide the direction of a small but multi-million-dollar company.
Great addition, Andy. Thank you. And one thing I'm hearing across the board is growth. It seems like that's happening on everyone's teams. So that brings me to my next question is, when it comes to talent, what do you look for when hiring externally?
So I think most likely everyone on the panel will agree, cannabis experience is great, but it's not necessary. I mean, if we see someone that's coming from the industry, they're definitely, we're going to take more of a look at like, hey, this is great. Where did they work? What exactly were they involved in? But that's not necessary. I mean, the industry as a legal industry is still very, very young. So if you're keeping yourself only to people who have cannabis experience, then you're really limiting your talent pool. So what we look for at Kiva is we really focus on people that, throughout our interview process show us that they are a good match to our core values. We really, really value innovation, passion, integrity is huge, and craftsmanship. Those are our 4 core values that we've defined, and really feel like you can demonstrate those in any aspect of the business, whether you're in production or sanitation, or you're a delivery driver or an accountant. So we really focus on that. We also definitely look for people who are adaptable, people who are humble, who realize that they don't know it all, even if they're coming from the cannabis industry, because even if you knew it all yesterday, you don't know it all today. And people who are, able to change and have been in companies that have changed before and are flexible and actually grow that way rather than becoming stunted, because change can do that to some people. And if there's any certainty about this industry and about Kiva, it's going to keep changing. So those are some of the things we focus on.
Yeah, I think those are all great points, and of course, heavily aligned with everything that you just said. We have to look at this. This is a, in Leaflink's case, it is a startup within a new, industry that, is in the process of, sort of defining itself. So what that really means is, to Catherine's point, is not about having cannabis specific experience. We really spend time as we're working to build out our recruiting processes at this point to really look at, our core values, what we kind of stand for as a company, and really work to drill in in terms of types of questions and the way that we assess folks in a way that's closely aligned to those values. And, for us, things are happening very quickly. Things are changing on a dime. So we really want people who are agile. We really want people who are nimble in their approach, folks that, Catherine, I think you alluded to this earlier on in the conversation about, sometimes you're really trying to perfect something. You have to be comfortable with using your best guess, because there isn't going to be some kind of manual or playbook for this existing somewhere. So people who have had experiences where they've had to really rely on their best judgment and be comfortable with that, operating in an environment where you have to move quickly and think quickly, and being okay sometimes with, while we want to put out top class product, at the end of the day, being comfortable that sometimes it's okay with it being 90% and being comfortable with that and being able to move on to the next challenge, because there's so many challenges along the way. I would say the other piece that we really look at, folks are particularly successful at Leaflink when they're able to operate, have this nice blend of operating, being able to think strategically, when needed about a problem and the bigger picture, but also are really comfortable operating tactically, can work in a very scrappy manner, and are comfortable building things from scratch. Again, because we are new, a lot of us that have been hired in the last few months of Link, our mandate has been to create, build from scratch. And so we really look for people that have had, that type of past experience.
Awesome.
Yeah, I agree with everyone here that really living in that kind of ambiguity is so important, because we're not black and white. We really operate in gray a lot of times, where I need you to think and make a decision based on the information coming in. And what's cool is we can do that without a set of policies and procedures. And at the end of the day, in my area, I'm making decisions around people. So how does this affect our people on their day-to-day and long-term? What's the investment? And how do we take care of them so we can retain our top talent? I'll give you an example. I hired someone, his name is Steven, and he had applied into all 3 of my recs that I had open. Steven lived in Florida. I'm like, who is this guy? Why is he applying to all of my recs? So I set up a phone screen. Hey, what's going on? Tell me your story. And he wanted to move to Colorado, wanted to get into cannabis. He sold insurance. And I can't think of anything worse to sell than insurance. So I said, okay, what are you looking for? And kind of developed a relationship with him. And I said, I want you to meet our director of retail and do a Zoom interview with him, because this would be a different candidate than that we would bring in. Stephen relocated here probably 3 months ago and has already been promoted to an assistant store manager. So we needed to put in some tools for training and getting up to speed quickly. But he's really doing a great job for us. And I think that's the power of pick up the phone and tell me your story. I really want to know what that is. And if there's a match, great. If there isn't, that's fine too. But really kind of stretching our wings out a little bit to see how we can continue to grow this brand.
Shout out to Steven.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah. That's an awesome story. Thank you. What I'm hearing across the board is that while experience is nice, culture is more important when it comes to hiring in cannabis. So I love that. So moving on to another topic, what should candidates know about regulations and policies that uniquely affect employees and teams in the cannabis industry?
I'm curious to hear the panel's thoughts on this, because we're not plant touching or product touching, so it's a little bit different. Curious to hear,
For me, oh, go ahead, Andy. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say for us, compliance is huge. Yeah. So I do have 3 people that sit on a compliance team. I don't understand everything that they do, but I know we don't mess around with it. So we're on the radar sometimes with the MED and some other organizations. So we really have a robust SOP for those areas. I was actually kind of surprised. I thought it would be, some things we do are kind of loosey-goosey, so I thought it would sort of be that way, but it's not. It's really tight. And what's been cool is some of the owners' other brands look to my compliance team for consulting help. And so that's where I know, like, hey, we got this dialed in. Or if we're getting a visit and, we pass or there's some comment, I'm like, this team is solid. I could not do that because it's like reporting and all this crazy stuff. But the team that we have in there, they're definitely experienced at that. And honestly, we can't lose our licensure, right? That's what it's about. And so that's got to be protected. So having that strong compliance piece in place, those experts, they're critical.
Definitely. So we have a fantastic compliance team as well. And it's interesting coming from a different industries, I'll say, not having worked in cannabis. I was the one always talking about compliance, and compliance meant HR compliance, right?
Yeah, right.
And it was a little sad when, we started talking about compliance at Kiva, and I'm like, yes, this company really cares about HR, which they do. But come to find out, compliance in cannabis is a whole separate animal, right? So even if you're coming from the industry and you have a good understanding, I go back to like, you have to understand that things are going to change, constantly. So you're never going to know everything. And I think the most important thing, especially if you're coming from outside the industry, is to accept and acknowledge that it is different and it is going to create challenges. A lot of people brush that off. We talked before about how so many people want to get into the industry and they're so passionate, and passion can overcome a lot of things, but it doesn't mean that it's not going to be a challenge. Some of the compliance issues or difficulties that have touched me in HR have been, staffing. When I first joined, we were trying to find, and this was a year and a half ago, trying to find a staffing company that would work for us to supply hourly workers. Now there are a lot of solutions. Back then, I joined the company right after the only staffing firm that was working with us told us, oh, hey, we don't have workers' compensation for your industry, so we can't work with you anymore, right? Mm-hmm. That was one of my first fun challenges. What do we do with these 40 people that were, hired through an agency? If you're looking for a payroll system, now there are fantastic options like Work. But there are big companies which would typically be your go-tos, to set up payroll or state-of-the-art HRIS. ADP, Paylocity, they won't work with cannabis companies. Mm-hmm. I was so excited to come in and implement a 401k program. And we talked to a lot of different companies that would say, oh, we're really sorry, we can't do that because, we can't as a financial institution hold these funds because federally it's not legal. And then there were several others that told us, oh, yes, we can absolutely do it. But come to find out later, they kind of had this don't ask, don't tell policy. And I'm sorry, I don't want to risk my employees' money in a 401k that could, go up in smoke at any time. Mm-hmm. So those are the kind of things that, you might not think of, but you do come up against these unexpected FedEx. We want a FedEx account so that we can mail things out, but they keep finding out we're, cannabis, and they shut us down. And it's like, oh man, so all these little things that operationally would go very smoothly at other companies and wouldn't be a challenge, it does become a challenge. And you just have to be able to kind of just say, okay, it's cannabis. That's what we do. It's cannabis. And, figure out a way around it, figure out a way to make it work.
Yeah, definitely could relate to, some of the challenges around partnerships, third-party partnerships and vendors. We too, although again, we're not, plant touching, we ourselves have run into some of those similar challenges. I would say for my perspective, I am particularly focused on making sure that the employees that join LeafLink understand that you are joining an organization like any other organization. So trying to move past this idea of, the cannabis industry being some sort of other or, less than, or certain standards, certain apply, or certain, the way you behave and operate. So, not saying that we're by no means a rules-based organization and people are not able to be empowered and have a great employee experience. But I think it's important for, folks coming into the industry to recognize that we're working to define this space. We're working to remove certain stigmas from this space. So I think there is an even more added responsibility on those of us who are joining the industry to hold ourselves accountable, even more so to that employee handbook, even more so than ever, or hold ourselves accountable to, a code of ethics, a moral code, so to speak, in the way that we do business and the way that we conduct ourselves on a regular basis, because that can only then help to sort of propel the industry forward. So, when I think about rules, regulations, policies, how to show up, that's what kind of comes to mind for me is, folks entering, recognizing that responsibility and realizing that you're coming in to also do your part to help, as I said, define and take this industry further and remove some of those stigmas that are around it. So that's kind of where I land on that topic.
Well, and to add to that, Dara, when people find out, I always say I do HR work in the cannabis space, and it's always kind of this, depending on who you're talking to, if you're at a dinner party or whatever, and they said, well, that must be interesting, and I can kind of gauge where they're at. Mm-hmm. And I often tell people about removing the stigma. I work for Walgreens, and they are the largest distributor of opioids in Colorado. So I try to shift the thought process that, they may be doing it legally per se, but, that we need to kind of change who that was. So at first I was a little afraid to say what I did. And I thought first of all, Andy, you're crazy. I always want to be proud of what my profession and whatever, and taking care of people. But then I try to shift their mindset so they can better understand that, we are trying to change and we do have these obstacles, but at the end of the day, these are multi-million-dollar businesses that, need an HR team. They need people advocates, and we're there for them.
Yep.
Love that, Andy. I'm so happy for this group removing the stigma around cannabis and just making this legitimate industry and making sure that employees have all the benefits available to, just like in any other industry. So love that you guys shared that information. Thank you. So moving on to our next question, what do you think are some of the top transferable skills for individuals trying to break into cannabis coming from outside markets?
I think it's kind of what we said before, but to double down on it, in my mind, it's being able to make decisions quickly, yet thoughtfully. I think it's being able to create and build from scratch. And because of the kind of growth that so many of the companies in this industry, are experiencing at this point, LeafLink no exception, we're really looking for people. I think if you've had an experience where you've had to scale and build an operation in a really short period of time, if you've had to be part of that wave at any other industry, I think that is an experience that transfers really, really well if you're coming in from an outside market, particularly for LeafLink. A lot of the roles that we are looking at right now in certain areas are people who have, been a part of teams where it was once a team of 10, and then over a 6-month period, it tripled that growth. So, and what did that person actually do to contribute towards scaling and sustaining that type of growth? So for us, that's a big, big focus when we think about, transferable skill sets.
Definitely. I can't point to any, one program or one capability that is kind of that golden ticket. It really is more about the soft skills. Having past experience again in cannabis is great. If metric, that's wonderful. But and this kind of spans industries, excellent communication skills. I mean, there's nothing better than someone who is a good communicator. Tenacity. And, when you do come up against those speed bumps of not being able to work with your preferred vendor or not knowing where you're going to go for a 401k provider, just saying, okay, well, that's one bump in the road, but I'm going to figure it out, and following through with it. I think follow through is very important because there's so much going on in this, in the industry itself, again, being young legally, and it's so easy to get pulled off in many different directions. But really when you start an initiative, sticking to it and seeing it through to the end, and knowing that, hey, you might have to change at some point in the future, but here's something sustainable for now. And then flexibility and adaptability to change, like Dara was saying, a willingness to learn. People who are hungry to learn are going to do well, regardless of what industry they're in, but especially here, because there's lots to learn. For sure.
For sure.
I agree. I look for, any kind of skills around customer service and retail and that focus, whether it's cannabis or when I worked at Lowe's, it's all a business. It's about a product, distribution, and people. So really finding people that can adapt to that and that they understand that. If you're not a retailer, you won't understand retail environments, and we are open on nights and weekends, and we have that vein within there. So the one thing I do like, a lot of our people understand that, and so that's not the concern. But our customers are difficult, so I got to find somebody who's strong in that field, because they're going to be up against some tough people sometimes, and how they use those soft skills to de-escalate or have a conversation is critical to. We have a brand, and we don't want to lose that image that we have, on the outskirts of Denver.
Mm-hmm.
Great input. Thank you, everyone. I have a question that's going to kind of piggyback on that last one. So as you think about your kind of top unicorns that you've hired in this industry, I know you mentioned one, Andy. What did they have in common? Is it a skill set, a mindset? Is it something else? Tell us a little about those amazing hires that you found.
Right now, what I have three of them total. I don't know that they know that, but they are my three unicorns, and really, they want to get into the industry. They are at a crossroads of change. They're typically they've got some business or professional background, not necessarily retail, but they are willing to start out at the ground level because today this is what I can offer you. I can't promise you anything, but I can give you an opportunity, and then you do with it what you can, and I will support it the best I can. So those three people, I try to have regular touch points with them. That's not really in my job description, but I'm so committed to them that I want to make sure that they can get the advancement that they need in the training, because we have all these resources. They may not know that I could put that together for them, and so I just continue that relationship building, and so far it's been really good. So I think just building that relationship so that they can continue to stay with us and grow and learn that side of the industry.
Mm-hmm.
It's wonderful.
Definitely. I go back to soft skills. When I looked at this question on the list that we did we saw ahead of time, I was thinking through all of our employees and like who would stand out as a unicorn. Maybe we didn't even know it when we hired them, but what have they done to really demonstrate like, wow, that's one of our most valuable employees? And that's what helped shape my answer to the last question too. It's communication, it's tenacity. It's, coming in with ideas, but seeing them through and not getting distracted. I guess really a unicorn, if I were to create the perfect candidate, would be somebody who comes from, a company that's already scaled, a big company, and knows all the processes and procedures to put in place, but isn't going to get frustrated that it's not easy to put them in place at Kiva, that it's going to take time, right? Mm-hmm. Not getting frustrated. And so being able to, coming in with that background and those ideas, and having that tenacity and that follow through to be able to put them in place, understanding that Kiva is still very much in the startup stage.
Right. Catherine, such a good point. I am like nodding my head as you're speaking because I'm looking at my notes that I pretty much the same thing. You said tenacity, I wrote patience. I said, really the best folks are the ones that we can't say this enough, really understand that, defining an industry that has a stigma is not an overnight task, right? Regardless of what the company is that you join. There will be days where there's progress, and there are going to be days where there are setbacks. There are going to be days that things happen that you didn't really anticipate. The best folks, the most successful people, at least from my observations in LeafLink, are the ones that have been able to, persevere through that and are able to be really grounded in why they are here in the first place, and understanding that they're here to want to make a difference, want to define this space and define this industry. And so they are able to, sort of push through some of these, day-to-day challenges. I think on the other end, the other piece that I would say when I look at LeafLink and the ones that are very successful, very engaged, are employees who are really focused on understanding the mission behind kind of what they're doing. So yes, we're a technology platform, and we are defining the way brands and retailers interact on a regular basis. But beyond that, we are very much a part of a larger industry, that has had its challenges, and the folks that show up the best for us at LeafLink are the ones that understand that part of being in this industry is also having, sort of a mission-driven focus as well. And so if I have to think about unique mindsets, things that you don't come across, that's another one that comes to mind to me. A lot of our employees are very, very active in wanting to impact the community in a positive way.
One more thing. Well, I'm sorry. One more thing I would add, and it just kind of came to me, is somebody who is comfortable, at least for a time, in wearing different hats, right? Depending on the situation. And a lot of times, again, we look for people from, we'd love to get people from big companies that, can help us to build, but not if they're going to come in and say, well, that's not my job, or, they're used to a specific whether it's 9 to 5 work day or a specific set of responsibilities.
Yeah.
Those positions do exist, but those aren't the people that stand out and move the company forward. It's people who, if all of us are in HR, and I'm sure you guys do, I get questions every day that have nothing to do with human resources, but people know me and they're comfortable asking me questions, so they'll ask me. And so I find myself going to all different departments to try and help them find answers. And I know that's inherent in human resources. We have to do that, but that is also a quality that I think would serve anyone coming into the industry very, very well.
Yes, I think that's a good point to just double down on. And I think back, there's one particular woman that works for us that is remarkable. When I think of her, shout out to Claire if you're watching this, but she has been with the company for, since the beginning. And Claire has literally probably done every role that you could probably think about that needs to be done to help drive the company forward. And, I look to her as kind of a source of inspiration when we're thinking about who those types of hires need to be that we're bringing into the organization. Definitely that mindset of no task is too big, no task is too small, wanting to learn different areas, okay with taking on different, assignments, different tasks. I think, to double down on Catherine's point, those people tend to definitely be the more successful folks and instrumental, again, yes, in helping to drive, the business forward.
That's great. Thanks, Dara. Thank you for everyone's input. What I heard is that purpose is really important, flexibility, the ability to wear many hats, and being patient in this industry, all really great attributes when looking for those unicorns. So thank you so much. What would each of you say is your best piece of advice for finding success as a new job seeker in this industry? And then how about for existing pros who want to level up? What advice can you share?
I'd say I thought about this a lot, and I really feel like the best advice is to network and connect with people in the industry in a variety of positions, not just in, the position that you want. I think coming to events like this and just making connections with people is super important. Any industry, when employers are looking to hire people, they love referrals, right? It's like, okay, we have these employees, they've referred someone to that person, must know what the industry is like. They probably wouldn't put their name on the line if, this wasn't a quality person. And so networking can help you to achieve that. So just joining different, discussion groups, attending events like this and connecting with the panelists or connecting with each other. So that, when you do see a position that really interests you, you can kind of look and say, hey, who do I know that can help me leverage my candidacy into a role there? I would also say, definitely you can be open to taking a position to get your foot in the door. I would encourage that, because a lot of, we do a lot of promotion from within. And so some of our people have started, as packagers, and now they're production managers, or we have someone who was a driver for the past 5 years that just joined our safety HR team. Shout out to Eric. We love doing that. But I wouldn't necessarily advise is to go to a website and click on and apply to every single job position that they have open. And you may disagree. I know Steve was tenacious and applied to 3 jobs. But when people apply to every single job that's open, and some of them are very clearly not a match, it's kind of like, okay, well, what's happening here? So try and focus on positions that do pertain to your skills, or write a cover letter explaining how that, your skills tie into the job. So I would say networking and focus, and don't be afraid to, take a position that's a little bit different than what you've traditionally done. And if you're able to, sometimes even a pay cut, so that you get your foot in the door and you can really show your stuff and move up.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Catherine's response there. I think coming into this industry, you have to have an open mind, first of all. I think even if you want to enter the cannabis industry, you may have your own, ideas of what those opportunities can look like. But, the cannabis is a very diverse industry. It doesn't have to only mean that you're, owning a dispensary or working for, a brand, right? There are also a bunch of supplemental professions. LeafLink, for example, is one of those. We're a technology platform that services, the cannabis industry. So do your research and look at all of the different types of opportunities or businesses, companies that exist within the space, and then really take the time to think about, based off of what those companies are, how do those line up to your overall strengths, the type of experiences that you have had in the past. So if you're somebody that's coming from a big, say, technology company, but you want to get into cannabis, looking into what are the companies that exist that are like LeafLink, perhaps, that may be an easier foot in the door for you to be able to, sort of get into. So look at everything across the board, have an open mind. Again, I agree with Catherine's, advice on attending as much as you can in terms of events within the space. So, what kind of authentic relationships can you really start to build from these events? So not just attend, but are there mentorships that you can start creating? Are there, real peer-to-peer coaching groups, coaching groups that you can start creating amongst yourselves to help each other kind of get into the industry and leveraging networks? So think about those things. And really work to become an expert in understanding the industry and what it has to offer, what are the ins and the outs, and then seeing where you can make the right, right connections to be able to get in. So that's where I would land on that.
And I would agree with Catherine and Dara as well. The connections are really important. I'll give you an example. I have a friend, Will, that I met at Crate and Barrel. He is finishing his MBA in business at CU here. He emails me and said, hey, I have this final project. Is there a way? He had worked in cannabis, so he had that background. He wanted to basically, for free, essentially, do a market study on launching a new product. How could I not say yes to him, right? My investment was really, write a little blurb at the end of what he did. He came in, got him in front of the director, the owner, and really had put together a robust proposal on a new product. And that was somebody that was an acquaintance, right? So I think however you can build those connections and what you're looking for, don't underestimate where that connection can happen. And even today, I'm already, the four of us have never met, right? We're now connected. I already want to reach out to Catherine about her 401k, your product line. So I mean, and I haven't worked with the work platform. So there's all these things that we have to get immersed in, and it's okay to say, hey, I don't know how to do this, because as Dara said earlier, there's no manual on a pandemic, right? In an HR field, there's no manual on cannabis HR work. So we're kind of writing that every day, every time the phone rings, and how we show up.
Yeah. That's awesome. I can second how important the network connections are. Catherine and I have become friends over several months of working through different panels and discussions. So I think for the audience, networking is so important, making those connections, be willing to get your foot in the door and maybe start at an entry-level role and grow with the company. I hear that a lot of organizations in cannabis hire within and promote within. So there's so much opportunity if you're willing to jump on board. So
can I add one more thing?
Yeah, please do.
Well, the whole reason I'm here is that Jenna from Vangst is my neighbor. I met her at school, right? I met her at school. We have this, she's doing something different, but we have this connection and overlay. And then she texted me one night, hey, would you want to join this? And then here we are. And so a shout out to Jenna from Vangst.
That is awesome. I love that. Making connections.
Yeah.
That's an awesome story. And I feel like I skipped over the second part of the question. I apologize. It wasn't just, how to find success as a new job seeker, but then for existing pros, right? So I think the people that are going to continue to be successful, whether it's in their own company or someone else's, is just realize that, you're not going to move ahead by doing the same thing you've always done. I know that's very cliche and it's like, okay, great, I've heard that before, but think about how much the company has changed for people that have been in, or the industry has changed for people that have been in the industry a year or two. If you keep doing the same thing, or if you're resistant to trying new things, accepting new people, or when new people come in with ideas kind of being like, yeah, that's not going to work for us, then you're probably not going to move up and you might actually work yourself out of the company. Luckily, the people in Kiva, I haven't seen that issue at all. Everyone's very open to change and hungry for it. But that would be a good way not to move up, would be to keep doing what you've always done, right? To always be open to learning, always be humble. And then, if you want to move up and you feel like you can't do that within your organization just because of the way it's structured or because it's not big enough or you're looking for a new opportunity, I go back to networking. I feel like right now, if I wanted a job at any cannabis company, I could easily pinpoint 2 or 3 people that I know at that company and reach out to them and be like, ooh, can you put in a good word for me? Now, maybe that would work against me and they'd be like, yeah, we definitely don't want to work with you, Catherine, but at least I would have that networking capability, to kind of get in and get their perspective and things. So the more networking, the better.
That's awesome. I love that advice, Catherine, about doing something different. There's a book, I have yet to read it, but it's called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And
exactly.
Awesome, right? We've got to change, especially like when I see individuals going into new management roles. It's like, awesome what got you there. It's not going to get you to the next level. You've got to change and be flexible. So it's really 100%. Great advice. Awesome. So we're getting close to our last question, the $1 million question. Who here is hiring, and what can you tell us about your open positions and how to apply?
I'll start. I mean, we are hiring at Kiva, so we have positions across all of the different aspects of our business. So anything from analytics manager, senior business analyst. As we scale, it's important to have the data, and so we're spending a lot of time and a lot of people resources in building systems and being able to pull data to analyze and scale. We're looking for an area manager to focus on Kiva sales in Southern California, demand planner, maintenance, metric manager, even a plant operations manager in Northern California. Of course, our hourly positions, we typically have opening in production, packaging, sanitation, driving, order fulfillment. Regional sales manager in Southern California, sales operations, looking for a systems manager in our distribution unit. So I don't know if you really wanted me to just kind of go down a bullet point list. They're all on our website. If you go to kivaconfections.com, careers, they're all there. It can't hurt to, once you apply, reach out to someone that on LinkedIn, or even I've had people reach out to me, hey, I saw you present on this panel, or I saw you work at Kiva and just wanted to say I love your products. And I personally, I know not everyone does, but I try and go in there a couple times a week and just respond to everyone and, just say, hey, thanks so much for the interest, and, ask our recruiters to take a look out. So it can't hurt to follow up as well.
Yeah, agree. Same. LeafLink is hiring across the board. We have, about 30 positions currently, open on our website. I'll say this: visit our website, the careers page. You can see specifics, but just to give a little bit more insight, our major areas of focus at this point are within our revenue groups. So we have a couple of different sales and sales operations, business development type positions that are open within our revenue teams. We are actively at the point of building out our logistics arm of our business. So if you are an analyst, we're looking for operations analysts to support our logistics business. We have regional transportation manager that we're looking to support our logistics business. So again, when you think about just broad across the company, there are many different opportunities. I would even say in our payments arm, Leafling Financial, we're also looking for analysts there. And then, of course, we are a technology company, and so there will always be technology and engineering positions open. Of course, we have a bunch of engineering positions. I think we're trying to hire 12 or between 12 to 15 new engineers between now and the beginning of the year. So that's quite a task. So if you're a software engineer, hit us up.
That's awesome. Thanks, Dara. Andy, what do you have open? Are you hiring?
Yeah, Buddy Boy Brands is hiring. We're looking for the unicorn, right? I want to add my fourth experiment or fifth. Right now, most of our positions are going to be storefront facing, so customer service associates. I don't have any corporate positions open today, but that could change. We're always looking to fill those positions typically internally. So really, someone who wants to get into the industry, wants to learn, wants to be that unique personality. That's really what we're looking for. All of my positions are posted on our website as well. And I would say check back because it's changing pretty regularly. So, who knows what tomorrow will bring.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Great. Awesome to hear all the hiring that's going on. So where should candidates go to apply? To any websites you want to shout out?
Leafling.com/careers.
Yeah. Or keepitconfections.com/careers.
Same.
All right. Well, that's awesome. Thank you. Well, candidates know where to find you all. And that wraps up most of our questions for the panel today. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in.
This is great.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for your great advice and for your time to all the panelists. Huge shout out. And we look forward to networking and connecting with each of you all.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you. Bye. I think